affect the wider community. This could be the Sunnis, the Christians. How does our emotions relate to them? How do they see this? For tears is something that we are offering to the Ahlul Bayt and Imam Zaman. I said this yesterday. There is a slogan which is recited in Ziyarat Ashura. It says, Ya laytani kuntu ma'akum fa'afawzu fawzan azima. I wish I was with you.
MashaAllah.
Ya laytani kuntu ma'akum. I wish I was with you. And I would have succeeded in this great success. And Imam Hussain Islam has the dying words of Imam Hussain Islam. Hal min, is there anybody to help me? And this istighasa is echoing in the universe, not just in the world. Is there anybody to help me? Imam knew that Ali Akbar has been martyred, Hazrat Abbas has been martyred, the friends and families have all been martyred. Then why this istighasa? Why this call for help? Why this call for help? This call for help exists even today.
MashaAllah.
The mission of Imam Hussain Islam is still asking for help today. And each one of you who is sat here is an answer to that call. Your call is Labbaik Ya Hussain. The istighasa which Imam in Karbala made, you are its translation. You are its interpretation. You are fulfilling that call, which is Labbaik Ya Hussain. Labbaik means, here I am, and here you are. For the rest of the Muslim world, they're sat in their homes. They do not have any idea the tragedy which befell the Holy Prophet's family. They're comfortable in their homes. But you have left your comfort, left your businesses, left your work, and you are sat here in a gathering to remember Imam Hussain Islam. So this crying is also the answer to this istighasa. By you coming here, you have proven, to whatever level, everybody is not the same level. We all have different levels. Whatever level, you have first of all reached the level of attendance, which is the first level. Your intentions, only Allah knows. But the first level is you are here. You have proven that you have answered the first call, which is the attendance in Muharram. In 1979, when the Iranian Revolution took place, in the first year, this is related to what I'm saying over crying, it's all connected. In the first year of the revolution, there were individuals, not Sunnis, but Shias, who were saying to Imam Khomeini, Rizwanullah alayhi, that we have gone through a civil war, in a sense. There's been a major revolution in Iran. Can we not postpone the Azadari, the Muharram processions? Because we're spending millions and millions of dollars, which we can spend on our infrastructure, on our roads, on our hospitals, on our welfare. Make the community better. by spending the money that we can save on the sabils, the Dawat Muharrams, the ulama, the food, the time, we can save all that. This was a Shia. Imam Khomeini said, you have not understood Azadari. You have not understood the message of Imam Hussain Islam. By these very functions, okay, it might be on a smaller level. In big Hussainiyas, you have gatherings of thousands of people. But that's not really a problem. To our own specific local area, we fulfill what we need to do. We might have 20, 30, 40, 50 people. It doesn't matter. At least we are in those categories of people who have made it their mission to propagate Imam Hussein's vision.
MashaAllah.
Our mission is not our mission. It's the mission of Imam Hussain al-Islam. And it all goes back to the attachment. It's not who we are as individuals. It's to whom we are attached to. I might die tomorrow. My existence in your memories might be for a few days, a few hours, months, maybe a year. I will be forgotten. Like many before me have been forgotten. But one thing which perhaps I would like to have on my coffin is this man did something for the mission of Imam Hussain. That would be the greatest honor. Anything else in life is meaningless. This is the greatest honor, to be called an Azadari, not by individuals, by the Imams themselves. You might think, well, you're speaking in English. How can that be, Azadari? Because all our majlises are in Urdu and in Arabic and Farsi. Language is not the problem. The intention is important. For even today, the language of power is English. The language of power is English. And you've been listening to me, alhamdulillah, for many, many years. But over time, your ears have become accustomed to listening to English lectures. And you're not unique. It's the whole country, the whole of America. That is the language which you're using, is English. Many, I personally know, many Hussainiyas which only have Muharram majlises in English. There's no Urdu at all. Would you believe that? There are Hussainiyas in this country, where they do not have any lectures in any language apart from English. No Urdu, no Farsi, no Arabic, only English. So, alhamdulillah, that I think is the greatest thing that a person can ask for, is to be called an Azadari. And each one of you can play the role of an Azadari by contributing in any way you can. Be it financial contribution, be it time contribution, be it research contribution. You can all contribute in the message of Imam Hussain Islam. So Imam Khomeini said this, that you do not understand the concept and the philosophy of Imam Hussain Islam. By having these processions, you learn something. By having these majalises, you learn something. And that is how to sacrifice. You have sacrificed your time. You have sacrificed your money. So, Imam Hussain al-Islam, his martyrdom in Karbala, has taught us how to sacrifice. Also, it's taught us something more important than that. Imam Hussain al-Islam has taught us how to die. You don't get any lessons on dying. You do not get any lessons on dying. You don't go to classes on how to die. You just die. But Imam Hussain al-Islam has taught us how to die. How to die. There's another word. It's how to die and how we die. There's a difference. How we die. We have two doctors here. They can tell you how we die. How the chemical reaction in the body, how the body shuts down. They know how we die. They have the medical knowledge of knowing when a person is dead. But Imam Hussain al-Islam has transcended all this by teaching us how to die. Not how we die, how to die. And through what we are doing today, through the majlis and through our crying, Imam Hussain al-Islam subconsciously is telling us that there's a way of dying as well. And this wilayat and love of the Ahlul Bayt is teaching us how to die. For dying becomes easier when you know that there are people on the other side who are looking forward to our arrival. In Barzakh, when we die, when we go to our graves, it's not going to be a lonely place. It's going to be a place that we can rest and enjoy ourselves. I was reading a hadith from the Ma'sooms. It was saying regarding crying that a person who cries in the love of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, and because of the musibah, the tragedy which befell Imam Hussain alayhi salam, because of this crying, Malakal Maut, you know the angel of death?
The angel of death.
The angel of death. For the angel of death will be told, when you go to this Azadar, be as kind as a mother is to her child.
MashaAllah. MashaAllah.
If that isn't a lesson on how to die, what is? When we know that my death is not going to be a problem. My death, and when I say my death, I mean everybody's going to die. But when people talk about death, they don't want to talk about their own deaths. I'll be happy to talk about my death. So when I die, at least I know that Malakul Maut is not going to be that scary monster that we are told he is in books. For he will come. For this person who's lying on his deathbed, for he was the Azadari of Imam Hussain al-Islam. What greater honor can be than that? So the crying, it changes us. And I'm talking about how crying is changing us, not just psychologically, but also physically. You might think, well, how does crying change you physically? I said that in order to cry, you've got to create hormones. You've got to have a thought pattern in your mind, what you're thinking of. You're thinking of Karbala. You're thinking of Karbala, and because of Karbala, you are creating emotions. Those emotions themselves do not make you cry. Like I said, in the beginning of the first lecture, onions can make you cry. But they're not emotional tears. They're chemical tears, caused through the chemical of the onions. But the emotional tears that we're talking about is the tears which are created through the pain of remembering Imam Hussain. And that is hormonal. Hormones are needed to create tears from your tear ducts. You've heard this saying in English. You cannot get blood out of stone. Have you heard this?
Yes.
You cannot get blood out of stone. Is that true? It's not.
You can.
You couldn't get blood out of stone. And I've seen this myself. I've seen this myself. Those of you gone to Syria, some of you gone to a place called Halab. There's a masjid there, Masjid al-Nuqta. In that Masjid al-Nuqta is a stone. That stone is where the holy head of Imam Hussain was placed by the Christians. That was a monastery in those days, 14 centuries ago. The head of Imam Hussain was placed on that stone. A few drops of that blood were absorbed by the stone. That stone was a dead stone. Just understand the concept I'm trying to relate to you. This stone was a dead, lifeless stone. It had no life. The whole planet is full of stone. But millions of people over the ages have gone to that Masjid al-Nuqta. And they have seen this stone. They've seen it a red colour, with blood stains on it. And this blood hit that stone 14 centuries ago. But Imam Hussain Islam can give life to a dead stone.
Dead stone. MashaAllah.
Imam Hussain Islam has given life to Shiaism and Islam.
MashaAllah.
You can see a video which was taken by somebody, our own community, when the stone was actually crying blood. I have that video. Taken by our own relative. And I have been there many, many times. Alhamdulillah, I have not seen it actually cry. But I have been there where it recently had cried blood. And I have heard in the past, there are videos on YouTube of this stone crying blood. But this was the closest I've got, in the sense that somebody who I know actually videoed this himself. So this is the karamat and mu'jiza of the blood of Imam Hussain Islam, can give life to something which is dead. Salawat Muhammad wa alayhi. These tears, are they wasted? No, they're not wasted. These tears are meaningful. One of our greatest arifs is Sayyid Ayatollah Marashi Najfi, marhum Allah maqamahu. He died a few years back, but this is the value of these tears. He said to his sons that when I die, I want you to bury with me the handkerchief, the romal, which I used to use in crying for Imam Hussain Islam and Sayyidah Fatima Zahra. I want you to bury this with me. And also, when I die, I want you to come to my grave, my sons, and also read majlis on my grave. For this is one of our greatest modern day ulama who has ascended the heights of irfan. And my own teacher said, Sajid Qasim Hassan used to tell me, he said, if he warned somebody, please do not take my photo. And if they disobeyed him and took his photo, Sayyid Sajid Qasim actually told me this. He said, the photo would not appear. There would be no photo. If he had told somebody that do not take my photo, and they did, the the photo would not appear. And when people used to come to istikhara, he to tell them what the problem was before he gave them the answer. He didn't ask them what the problem was, he told them what the problem was. And then he would then give them the answer. This was the level. And he even understood. And all our ulama have understood the greatness of Azadari. One of the many, many effects of, this is a very, very important word, the universality of Azadari. One of the benefits of the universality of Azadari today is that even those who do not want to commemorate Muharram, they are forced to say something regarding Muharram.
MashaAllah.
Going back a few years, when the TV channels and the media Shias were newly coming into this field, the Sunnis were watching what was going on the Shia channels. They were responding. And when Muharram's majalises were being shown and broadcasted on TV, they also had to do the same. Be it in their own perspective, but they had to do the same because their own public, today even, in their masjids, they are having programs. They're having conferences on Imam Hussain al-Islam.
MashaAllah.
They're having conferences on Imam Hussain al-Islam. And this is not just in the United Kingdom, in America, in Europe. The whole of the Muslim world is beginning to now understand the message of Imam Hussain al-Islam. Salawat Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. The Imams have played a central role in promoting Azadari. And one of the objections our Sunni brothers have against the Shias, they say, look, Shias, and I said this in my first lecture, that Islam teaches us how to be patient. How to be patient when you're faced with problems. And when you're faced with problems, you shouldn't go out crying and wailing and beating your chest, because that is not a sign of sabr. Sabr is that you have to be patient. Whatever calamity or problem befalls upon you. So why do you Shias go around commemorating 10 days of Muharram, and then you have the Arba'een, then you have 2 months of grief? 2 months out of a whole year. 2 months grief. You commemorate every year. This is not so. Let me now just say a few things regarding this. So, some of you who perhaps do not understand the arguments behind this can have some sort of a narrative, a story in your mind. How do we address this problem? First of all, let's see who first of all cried for Imam Hussain al-Islam.
MashaAllah.
Our crying is not something which is impromptu. It's something which has come through us through centuries. 14 centuries. The first person to cry was Rasulullah himself. And the point I'm going to make now is Rasulullah cried on the birth of Imam Hussain al-Islam. Because Jibreel told Rasulullah that this son of yours is going to be martyred in Karbala. And he gave him a tube where the Khaki Shifa of Karbala, the land of Karbala, some soil of Karbala was put in that soil, and saying that this will turn to blood when your son is martyred. Rasulullah cried. Rasulullah cried when Imam Hussain was born. Sayyidah Fatima Zahra cried when she seen Rasulullah crying and asked, why are you crying? And Rasulullah told that Jibreel told me this. Fatima Zahra cried when Imam Hussain was born. Mawla Ali cried when Imam Hussain was born. You might say, okay, that's a natural response. Bearing in mind what I've said, the Sunnis say, why do you cry? It is bisabri. Rasulullah cried 57 years before Karbala.
MashaAllah.
Rasulullah cried
MashaAllah.
57 years before the event of Karbala happened. Nobody had been martyred. Nobody had been taken captive. Nobody had suffered any pain. There was no suffering, but Rasulullah, Sayyidah Fatima Zahra, Mawla Ali, they're all crying. Why? Because it was the memory which was going to happen 57 years in the future. That brought them to tears. Just having this vision, this picture in their minds, it made them cry. Just imagine how they felt when the actual day came. Mawla Ali had been martyred. Sayyidah Fatima Zahra had been martyred. Rasulullah had passed away. Imam Hussain had passed away. But were they not watching the events of Karbala from their elevated places? Or maybe, as our ulama and Zakirin said, they left their graves and actually were there, spiritually, physically, seeing the events being unfolded on the plains of Karbala. Also, there is a tradition which says about Imam Hussain al-Islam, and sometimes it's written on these banners. It says La Yom Ka Yomaka Ya Aba Abdillah, which means La Yom, there's no day. There's no day Ka Yomaka, like your day, Imam Hussain. Imam Hussain, according to the books, Imam Hussain said this, Ya Aba Abdillah, there's no day like your day. So that means that the martyrdom of Imam Ali al-Islam, the martyrdom of Sayyidah Fatima Zahra, Imam Hussain al-Islam, was not on the same level as the day of Karbala is. A Ma'soom is saying this, Imam Hussain is saying this, there is no day like your day, Ya Aba Abdillah. And you've heard this, and I'll inshallah wrap this up for today, and inshallah continue this tomorrow. Qasim ibn al-Hassan. Qasim ibn al-Hassan. Ali Qasim. He, on the day of Karbala, when he seen everybody being martyred, he took off an amulet, a taweez, on his arm, and showed it to his uncle, and said, this is something my father gave me. He said, when you are facing the most dire problems, show this to your uncle Hussain. And when Imam Hussain opened this taweez, he read, accept my son as a sacrifice for you. So even Imam Hussain alayhi salam, knew that about this day, about Karbala, about this day. So coming back to my original question, the Sunnis say that, why do you cry? If we now look at Imam Zain al-Abidin, Imam Zain al-Abidin, he made it his life pattern to cry for Imam Hussain al-Islam. Not just for one day, not just for 2 days, but for many, many years, Imam Zain al-Abidin cried. There was one event, Muhammad ibn Shihab al-Zuhri asked Imam Zain al-Abidin that I want to invite you to a wedding. The Imam said, no, I'm not going to a wedding. Muhammad ibn Shihab al-Zuhri is a scholar, and he has many, many hadith traditions in Bukhari. And all the Sunni books, and amongst the Shias as well. Shah Azadari insisted to Imam Zainab, no, you have to insist, I insist that you come to my wedding, to my son's wedding. Imam said, I will come on one condition, that you hold a majlis, and in that majlis you remember my father, and then I will come to your wedding. And Muhammad bin Shah Azadari did this. He had a majlis, and Imam went, and they had a majlis, and then the wedding. This is the tradition which the Imams are laying, the foundations which the Imams are laying. And also, if you read the life of Imam Ali Raza al-Islam, when he was in Mashhad, there's one poet whom he called Dabl Khazai, and he asked him to recite some ash'ars in the memory of Imam Hussain al-Islam. So he read these ash'ars, and he read these ash'ars, and people cried, and Imam cried, and the Imam rewarded him. The Imam rewarded him. So this was something that the Ahlul Bayt continuously promoted. Finally, my question, with what I will finish, is this. Hazrat Ismail alayhi salam was saved. He wasn't sacrificed. He was saved. And that day is regarded as Eid. The day of sacrifice is regarded as Eid. Had Hazrat Ismail been sacrificed, would it still be the joyous occasion that we commemorate today? No. If Hazrat Ismail was saved on the day of Eid, on the day of Eid, and that is regarded as a day of joy, the same Hazrat Ismail was martyred in Karbala. How can we regard that as a day of joy? If that was a day of happiness because he was saved, we have Ismail who was sacrificed. How can that be a day of joy? It's a day of misery.
कुछ गुजारिशात भी हैं रिगार्डिंग पार्किंग अभी भी जो है वो काफ़ी स्ट्रीट जो है वो बिजी है तो इस लिहाज से वो जो हमने पार्किंग जो अरेंज की हुई है वो बिल्कुल खाली पड़ी हुई है और वहाँ पे एक बंदे की ड्यूटी भी है जो कि मतलब वो 15-20 मिनट जो है वो गाड़ियों को पार्क करवाता है फिर इसके बाद जो है वो जो गेट ओपन करता है और फिर बंदे जो है वो अपनी गाड़ियों को लेकर निकल सकते हैं तो ये मेन पार्क स्टोर के पुष्ट पे जो है वो पार्किंग है अगर बाहर भी कहीं पे यानी जहाँ पे फ्री जोन है आप पार्क कर सकते हैं दूसरी गुजारिश एक और भी बहुत अहम है चूँकि हमारे काफ़ी मुमिनीन जो हैं 30-40 माइल अवे यानी फॉर एग्जाम्पल स्वीडन और जहाँ से दूर से जो मुमिनीन आते हैं बच्चों के स्कूल हैं इस लिहाज से अप टू मॉर्निंग मौलाना से गुजारिश की है कि 7:30 मौलाना जो है वो अपने खिताब का आगाज़ जो है वो किया करें तो मेरी तमाम मुमिनीन से दरख्वास्त है कि वो लेटेस्ट 6:30 जो है वो मजलिस में हाज़िर हों ताकि जो बच्चे हैं वो सुबह स्कूल को ठीक तरीके से अटेंड कर सकें तो आज हमारी एक और भी खुशकिस्मती है कि हमारे ज़ाकिर अहले बैत माशाल्लाह इनकी आवाज़ नहायत सुकून देने वाली आवाज़ भी है मुझे तो लास्ट ईयर इनको मैंने पहली दफ़ा सुना और मैं बहुत मुतासर हुआ था ये हाज़िरी तो हर रोज़ नहीं देते लेकिन जब देते हैं तो दिल बहुत खुश होता है तो मैं दावत दूँगा کہ جناب اپنے آواز سے طاہر شاہ صاحب ہمیں تھوڑا سا سکون دیں اور
بارے دیگر صلوات بھائی صاحب کو زیادہ تعریف کرنی ہے، اس قابل نہیں ہوں، بس ایک عزادار ہوں اور ایک پوسا دینے کے لیے آتا ہوں اور حاضری لگانے کے لیے آتا ہوں۔ ایک بار پھر صلوات پڑھیں۔ اعوذ باللہ من الشیطان الرجیم، بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم، صلوات۔ الحمدللہ رب العالمین، الصلاة والسلام علی سید الانبیاء والمرسلین، طیبین طاہرین والمعصومین، صلوات۔ جناب اکبر کے بارے میں کچھ منقبت پیش کرنا چاہتا ہوں کہ ان کی ولادت ہوئی، اس کے بارے میں کچھ بیان کرنا چاہتا ہوں۔ اداس ہو گئے نانا سے جب میرے آقا، اداس ہو گئے نانا سے جب میرے آقا، خدا سے سبز شگفتہ گلاب مانگ لیا۔ اداس ہو گئے نانا سے جب میرے آقا، خدا سے سبز شگفتہ گلاب مانگ لیا۔ بنانے لگا اکبر کو جب خالق اکبر، بنانے لگا اکبر کو جب خالق اکبر، نبی سے حسن اور علی سے شباب مانگ لیا۔ نعرہ حیدری، جناب حسین